Thank you for coming. I really appreciate taking the time. I know on a relatively beautiful day, and coming out for an hour or two is really a big deal. And especially many of you have had a long day of work, I know, and really appreciate the fact that you're coming out. It means a lot to the university. It means a lot to me personally. So thank you for being here. And I just want to be clear. My goal is to just show you the data, like why would we do this idea, what the purpose is. One of the commitments I made is that we will do the data, we'll do the research, and we'll get back to people, and we'll make it a really transparent process, and so people at least know why we're doing what we're doing, what the rationale is, and I don't expect everybody, if you're opposed, I don't expect by the end of tonight that you're all going to be supportive. But on the other hand, what we have seen in a number of cases in these forums, large numbers of people go, I get it, and some people go, I get it, I'm behind you. Some people go, I get it, but I'm not that comfortable. And other people, I would say they all sort of get what the rationale is, but they just, they have things that they just are holding on to. So wherever you end up, that's fine. I just wanted to let you know. I wanted to say, before we get on this particular slide, it's important for you, alumni, to know we're doing really well, really well. This is our 5th straight year of enrollment growth. In Northern New England, you're going to see how hard that is. We have reserves now at $10 million. When I came in, when David Flanagan came in the year before me, we were at negative $16 million. When I came in, we were at negative $4 million. So to have a $10 million reserve is huge. And thanks to you, we have doubled the amount of alumni participation. Right? We're counting this as alumni participation. This is not the way I want to really do alumni participation, but in terms of the larger picture. But we are getting lots and lots more, and we've gotten a number of $million-dollar gifts. And finally, as you know, we're about to do some major renovation to the Portland campus and to the Gorham campus at about $9 or $10 million worth of renovations and upgrades to the Gorham campus, and here rebuilding a brand new student center, and then putting, for the first time ever in our history, residential housing here on the Portland campus. Going to take back that parking lot and make it a nice green space, extend the parking lot out this way in the parking, so we'll still have parking, although I'm sure the interim 2 years will be a horror show. But the good news is we are building, we're growing, we're doing pretty well. The bad news, as you'll see from here, is we can't count on that continuing, and I'm just going to show you why that's the case. So let me just start off around the name change issue. So first of all, I want to just say, as I always tell this story, it has been extremely helpful. Some of you may remember Kate Foster was the president of UMaine Farmington for 7 years, and she just left last July 1st. And she went down to become president of a place called College of New Jersey, which I'd never really heard of before until she went there. And I called her because somebody said, you should give her a call. And I said, why should I give her a call? And she said, because that college went through a major name change about 12 years ago. So I said, oh, good. And I know Kate well. So I called her up down in New Jersey. And I said, I want to just get your thoughts on, your predecessor changed the name of that college. What happened? She said, I have 2 things for you. And if you know Kate, she always did everything in lists. I was thinking she'd tell me 9 things for you to say. But she said 2 things. One, and these are exact words, master stroke. Master stroke. Within 3 years, we had doubled our applications. We had become the small Rutgers of New Jersey, and we had moved from Trenton State College to College of New Jersey, and it transformed our image, and it really helped. I said, what's the second thing? And she said, number 2, don't do it the way we did it. I said, I want to hear about that. And I said, what happened? And she said, the president had a secret agreement with the Board of Trustees that they were going to do this in executive session in the last few minutes of a board meeting on a Friday night. And they all said, all in favor of changing out of the name of Trenton State, come College of New Jersey, all raised their hand. The president had the facilities management team ready to go, ripped down all signs over the weekend, the next 10 days. They dropped new uniforms off for the lacrosse team, the soccer team, the basketball team. They changed legal documents, and in 10 days, it was all done. And still today, she said, there are people who are still angry about it. She said, so what you're going to do, I would recommend, and this is what we're doing, for the next 4 to 6 months, go out and talk to anybody who wants to talk about it. Tell them what you're doing. Explain why. You may not win everybody over, but take your punches, because in the long run, it will feel better. So if the change does happen, People will feel like at least you explain what you're trying to do, you got feedback, and sometimes you can make adjustments. So that's what I'm doing today. I'm taking my punches and coming out, although what we found, as I said, a lot of people say, I'm with you, which is a wonderful, wonderful experience. But not everybody is, and we understand that. So let me just kind of explain what the rationale is today. I'll do what she said. And by the way, part of what happened in Trenton was particularly upsetting because it had a racial element, because Trenton was primarily Afro-American, and so it really cut deep to say, so how come you never talked to us about what were the real reasons you made that change? So those are the kind of things that you have to be really careful of, that, because what happens on the lighter version, people say, well, you don't like Gorham, which is absolutely not true. I think many of you know I taught high school there for 13 years. I coached basketball there. My grandmother went to the Gorham Normal School, the only school that Tim didn't go to, apparently. And I met my wife for 26 years in Gorham, and it means a lot to me personally. So this is not about not liking Gorham. As you'll see, unfortunately, Gorham doesn't move the needle at all. If you take one step south of Kittery, you're going to see some of that data. Not surprising, but the case. So let's take a look. Let's take a look first of all. Oops. Yep. Okay. So reasons for the name change. These are not the best reasons. They're really good reasons, but they're not the biggest reason. But they're really good reasons. First one is that people, believe it or not, I didn't know this. I grew up in Maine. I grew up in a small village about just outside of Bath, about 50 minutes from here, and I didn't know that there were people who didn't know that we were part of the University of Maine system. People say, you're the only one not named the University of Maine, Farmington, Machias, etc. That's really bad, because public schools have two reputations overall. And I'm not talking about the 10% that go to the super elites, the Bowdens, the Middleberries, the Williams, all that stuff. I'm not talking about those schools. But for the rest of us, public university connotes affordability and quality, a lot of PhDs, et cetera. So in a place like Thomas College, they don't have as many PhDs. They're a great school, by the way, I'm a big fan. But they don't have as many PhDs as we do, right? They're not doing as much research as we're doing. So we have quality and we have affordability together. So when you say public university, it actually attracts people. So I've found people that I've known as friends who came here in their 20s, 30s, 40s from out of state, said, oh, I thought that was a private school. Not good. The other thing is, as Rob knows, our affiliation, we spend a lot of money on the law school, not as much as they'd like, but we spend a lot of money on the law school. A lot of people don't even know that we have a connection to the law school. They think that they're totally separate. So that's a smaller reason. Now, name confusion. We often are confused with Southern Maine Community College. I love the community college, so don't get me wrong. It's just that that's not our product, right? I mean, I've worked there for 5 years. I think it's a fantastic thing. If my parents ever went to college, they'd go because they'd go to the community college. They wouldn't go to the university. That's what Maine needed, and we still need it tremendously. But it's a confusion, a constant brand confusion. And finally, I think you know that if you put in usm.edu, you do come up with Southern Mississippi, and that will happen for the next 20, 30, 40, 100 years, right? Because they have logged into that name. But none of these reasons are great. I wouldn't be bothering you on a beautiful afternoon for those reasons alone. This is much more important, which is that our out-of-state students turned out to be crucial, because if you can see this slide, I'll have a quiz for you. So it's late in the afternoon after many of you are tired. Here's my quiz. Where is there a worse place to be a college administrator? Where's the worst place in America to be a college administrator? You got it, Maine, New Hampshire, and Vermont. This is serious stuff, serious stuff. We're going down. Negative 12% means that in the next 10 years, we're expected to drop even further. And to put this in perspective, when Angus King left his governorship in 2002, he was 15 years later. So he said, I can tell you that the number of kids in the average class K through 12 when he left in 2002 was 17,000 students, right, in Maine. He said, I know that because I had to buy laptop computers for all of them, right, because he did his laptop thing. Then he said, what is it today? 13,000. Now think about that drop. And as I often say, my cousin who left Morse High School about 5, 6 years before I did, she went up in 1977, she went up to Presque Isle High School after she graduated. She went to Presque Isle High School and was a teacher, an English teacher, Richard, for the next 41 years at Presque Isle High School. And so when I was up there at the Board of Trustees meeting in September, I said, Francie, can I take you out for a cup of coffee and just say congratulations on retirement after 41 years? She said to me, I said to her, hey, and I wasn't even thinking about the name change. I said, what was the population of Presque Isle High School in 1977? And she said, 1,200 students. You want to take a guess at what it was when she left just 2 months before? 520, right? So it went from 1,200 to 520 during that time period. That is, by the way, the story of northern Maine, eastern Maine, western Maine. Southern Maine a little bit more stable, but we're still slightly heading down in York and Cumberland County, even though, but the good news is we get some in-migration between 25 years old and 45 years old. So this is a really tough situation, and this is the problem. If you remember how disastrous USM was in 2014, if we don't do everything we can, and by the way, name change is only part of a larger plan, but if we don't do everything we can, we're going to hit a ceiling hard and fast really sooner than we want to. And I don't want to be that president, but I will, and I won't let us get into a $16 million deficit. But what happens then when you take one program and you shut it down? You think, well, that's no problem. That was the Serbo-Creation Geology Department or something, right? The truth is, everybody reads in Maine, it's a small town, said they're closing programs there. Don't go to that school because your program might close down and be next. It's that serious, and that's how tight we are. The other thing is, this won't surprise you, if you actually take, let's suppose that it is 5:30 tonight, in the next 24 hours in Maine, we're going to have about 33 births, right? So we have 33 babies. Let's put 33 births into focus in 24 hours. The city of Houston, who is a little bit is bigger than us, so they're about 1.7, 1.8 million. We're 1.3, so it's not quite a fair comparison. But in the next 24 hours, the city of Houston will have 212 births in one day, and we have 33. In addition, the bad news gets even worse. If some of you saw this Boston Globe article about a month and a half ago that basically said we're one of 2 states in the country where the death rate is higher than the birth rate. Means that in the next 24 hours, we'll have 41 to 43 deaths while we're having 33 births. This is really bad news. And by the way, if you actually look at this, now obviously I get paid to think about the university, but I'm a long-time multi-generation Mainer. I also get paid to think about Maine. And this is the severity. Now think about this. This is Cumberland County in 15 years from now. If we don't get new people to come into this state. This is Cumberland County. By the way, Cumberland County, I think you all know, this is the economy of Cumberland County compared to the other 16 or 15 counties. This is York County just below us. Androscoggin not too far below that. And everybody else is down here, right? Penobscot, Piscataqua, Somerset, Washington, Aroostook. They're desperate in some ways. I was just down in Machias over the weekend for the Board of Trustees. There's not a lot of money, right? So this is what happens in Maine's richest economy, this richest county in the next 15 years. There's negative, if we don't do, if any new migration doesn't happen, we'll be losing 15,000 jobs in the next 15 years. If we just stay at where we are in terms of growth, we'll still be down 5,000 jobs here in this area. And even if we double the number of people coming into Cumberland County, we'll still only be 6,000 up. So when people say, because it doesn't really sell with the average person, say, well, we've got to make the university healthy. You got to also say we've got to make Maine healthy, and without immigration, we're in trouble. So let's take a look at how we might be able to get there. First of all, there's some good news in higher education, and by the way, USM is a great example of this. The majority of people in higher education stay within 100 miles or fewer of where they graduated, right? Not true of the elite schools, so the Colbys and the Wesleyans and the Smiths and the Welsleys. Little different from that. They all end up in, no surprise, Boston, New York, DC, or Chicago, LA, right? That's where 65% in the elite schools. But for the rest of us, we end up mostly within 70 miles of where we graduated, 70% within 70 miles. And by the way, as Corey will tell you, USM graduates are even better at that. We're well above 70. We think we're around 77. We like this place. We went to school in this place. We don't move, which is why I tell employers they're really great because they like where they are. They're going to stay over for a number of decades. And our students have huge work ethics because they tend to be working 25, 35 hours while they're trying to work full time. I said, you want those graduates because they work hard, they stay loyal, they stay connected to you. So let's take a look at this. So why do we want to bring those out-of-state students? The idea is if we bring those students in, 70% of them will stay. Why? Because it will help us. And this is where people kind of get caught up in the argument. They're like, well, just market more in New England. And I said, I don't have any money. I don't have that kind of money. That's the problem. I don't have enough to do that. So you've got to do a freebie. And the freebie turns out to be a name change. Helps us. Again, lots of other things we have to do, but the name change helps us market by definition. We'll see later some statistics. So why are we doing this? Because when some out-of-state student comes in, they're paying full pay out-of-state, $33,000, $34,000. Our students pay $22,000, right? So they're paying more. They use that money, and they're helping us grow the university. That money goes into faculty, academic programs, capital improvement, and student financial aid. We're going to give that money to good Maine kids who are trying to get ahead. And that scholarship money, which we've been raising consistently, we've been really doing well with that because it really matters to our students to have that extra $1,000, $2,000, $3,000.
I get that people from a way of paying more. Some people were wondering, well, okay, are they taking up spots from native Mainers? Is there going to be less available to people?
Good question, Rob. So we have the ability to grow, except that right now, with the residential program. So we can expand. By the way, we've been up to 11,000 students here at USM. We're down to 8,500. And by the way, 4 years ago, we were down in about 7,500. So we have the capacity to grow, but certainly in terms of commuters, et cetera, we can expand. However, Rob's right. Right now, if 10% were to show up, we'd have to turn them away because we're at 125% capacity at the Gorham campus right now. We've got triples in 25% of our rooms out there because there's not enough room. So partly, and I'm glad you brought that up, because we have to align what we're doing with a dormitory here on the Portland campus, or anywhere. We just have to expand our residential options. Otherwise, this doesn't work. So we're trying, nothing works perfectly, but we're trying to synchronize the name change with the new residential hall because, as you say, we couldn't residentially get them all in right now. Oh, over capacity. Yes, yes. That's we. Yeah. Oh, yes. Just so everybody knows, the question is, are we at? Oh, for the. Yes, thank you. The question was, are we at capacity? We are definitely at capacity. We have not been. This is the last 5 years that we have done an enormous job of bringing in as best we can out-of-state students, but mostly Maine students into the residential program. By the way, that's about 1,500 beds, I believe, out there, and they're more than full. More than full. Yeah.
It's more than just the beds, dormitory. Isn't it also the class ratio?
Right, correct.
So you don't want to overwhelm the class and the professors as well.
Yes, sir.
So you have to take that into consideration as well, right?
Absolutely. It makes a big difference. We can grow our commuter population because we can get more part-time, like Jennifer and others. Thank you. But overall, that's going to be a struggle. So, yeah. Yeah, it turns out Dickie Woods, for a long time, probably for most of the last 10 years, has been unusable. I can't say we didn't use it for a few years when it probably is mostly unusable. So yes, Dickie Woods definitely has to be replaced. So let me just finish up. So first question we asked, by the way, so we did a survey, and we surveyed just under 500 prospective students in metropolitan New York and throughout New England, but not Maine. And by the way, we did do some surveys in Maine, so I'll tell you about that too. But we did a New England and metropolitan New York, about 500 prospective students. Prospective students meaning, because you could be 36 or 86 coming back here, you can definitely do that. But these are traditional age. These are 16, 17, 18-year-olds, and we asked them about all these questions. The other thing we did is we did 500, just under 500 prospective parents, not of the exact same students, but prospective parents, people who had kids who were basically teenagers. And then we did 100 guidance counselors to look at that. So the first question we asked them is, what do you think of Portland? What do you think of Portland? This won't surprise you, but it was really, we thought it was appealing. We didn't really realize, first of all, that we didn't have to survey them because Orono already told us what they thought about Portland. How many of you remember? Now, it's hard for us USM graduates to admit this, but Orono figured this out before we did. If you remember this advertisement, as you go into the jetport, for 2.5 years, there was a big picture, come to the University of Maine at Orono, and the picture was Portland. They figured it out before we did. By the way, a lot of people in Orono, they're a little nervous about the name change because they figured out, whoa, they've got the best location in Maine, and finally they're actually using it, right? So for 2.5 years, I said to Susan Hunter, how would you feel if I put Habib Dagger's lab from UMaine Orono and a big picture and said, come to USM? And she finally took it down, but it took her 2.5 years to take it down. So I give Orono credit. They figured it out before us. That's the only time I'm ever going to say that. So when you actually ask about Portland, these are the prospective students. 80% almost said the city is interesting. City attracts young people, 75%. Appealing college town, 2 out of 3. Great place to live, great job opportunities, et cetera. Now let me just ask you this. This is not going to surprise anybody here. By the way, the red lines are there. These are the small percentage of people who don't like Portland, and we think they have ex-wives or ex-husbands up here in Portland. But let me just ask you this. If I put Lowell, Massachusetts, Springfield, Massachusetts, or Hartford, Connecticut up there, what do you think you'd see? Now, people will say, well, is it going to be hot a generation from now? I don't know, because I can tell you when I was a kid growing up in Bath, Maine, we never really loved Portland. So Portland's evolved into a great city. Hopefully it will continue to evolve. But right now, I can tell you it really does. It does make a huge difference. And you're getting some really, really good positive feedback. So we also found that from an exhaustive market research that out-of-state students, parents, and guidance counselors, and this is really discouraging news, because we've been working pretty hard. We don't have a big marketing budget. And we do most of our marketing, I'll be honest. If you only have $1 million, and by the way, Southern New Hampshire University has $139 million they spend in marketing alone. We're not that guy, right? We're not that woman. So we have, when we looked at this, we thought, well, how much do they know about USM from out of state? Boy, it is painful. They don't know us. Honestly, if you take one step south of Kittery, they don't know who we are. And you're going to see that pretty strongly. First of all, out-of-state, so the second bar and the fourth bar are the out-of-state bars. The first one is out-of-state students. Only 15% of students said that they had a grasp on who USM was. 15%. And another 30% said, well, I've kind of heard of you. That means 55% of out-of-state students have no clue they don't know anything about us. Now, I believe if it were UMass Boston, they'd know about us. I believe if it was the University of New Hampshire, they'd know about us. I believe if it was UMaine, they'd know about us. But in Southern Maine, it's huge brand confusion. And some of this, by the way, one of the researchers said, we did focus groups just over the river in Durham, New Hampshire, and those groups didn't really know about Southern Maine. They just don't know who we are, and it's confusing, et cetera. And that's really bad news. On the last one, out-of-state guidance counselors, fewer guidance counselors said they knew Southern Maine than the students said. Now, why do guidance counselors matter? You know why they matter, because kids like me, right? My father worked at the Bath Iron Works. My mother worked at Shaw's. And I say worked at the Bath Iron Works means he didn't actually have a pencil job, right? He actually sanded the side of ships, right? So literally when they went into Morse High School in the 1950s, their guidance counselors said, you're not college material. And both, sadly, my parents didn't know that they were college material. They didn't understand that. Fortunately, when I walked in there 25 years later, they said, where do you want to go to school? That's how important it was. And if that guidance counselor looked at me and said, you're not college material, I would have believed it. Why is that important for USM? Because our students, 52% of them are exactly like me. They don't know they belong here. Those guidance counselors are the people who will, Terry knows this from the TRIO program. The parents don't know how to encourage. I mean, my parents were supportive, but I couldn't say, should I try to get to Brown, Middlebury, or Wesleyan? And they'd say, I don't know what you're talking about. Right? I mean, they just wouldn't know. Although my brother went to Maine Maritime, and they really understood that one, by the way. So I just want to say that the guidance counselors really make a difference. We had to have them, and only 14% said they had a really strong handle on us, and that's bad because when kids like me come into Fitchburg, Mass, or downtown Boston, or in Hartford to meet with their guidance counselors, they're not getting the support. They're not getting our name out there like they have. So the also question is, do you know anything about the University of Southern Maine? For example, do you know what one of our campuses are? And by the way, these are smart kids. 45% of them said, I believe the University of Southern Maine is in Maine. I love it. We've got to get those students. They got to get those students. But this is the sad news. This is the really sad news. Only 5% out of state knew Gorham. I love Gorham. It's a beautiful town. You love Gorham. We all do. I mean, it's a gorgeous place. It's a great campus. They just don't know. It's not what's bringing them here. Only 27% could tell us that Portland was a campus, and that's really bad news because you saw how popular Portland was. So it really does make a difference, and only 1% actually knew that it was that Lewiston was a campus. And by the way, 18% said Southern Maine. So we were getting some logic there, but people clearly don't know much about us. So what we did is then we took the market research and showed that a new name clearly associates us with Portland could significantly move the out-of-state needle. So before I show you the next slide, let me tell you this. So I was in politics, and I was in education, and I've been in leadership for a bunch of positions, and changes like this are tough. This is a bag of snakes, right? I got a chancellor who's kind of cautious, so he's not going to go running down the hill for me or with me. And I've got, a board of visitors who's very supportive, but they don't, they're not necessarily deeply involved. I got alumni who love USM, right? If you graduate from someplace, you're attached to it. And I've got a community who's not particularly attached yet to the university on some level. So politically, this was what I call the bag of snakes. So I said to Nancy Griffin, who is an outstanding enrollment director, I said to her, you know the business. By the way, she's a graduate, 1982 graduate of USM. And she had just come from Johns Hopkins 4 years ago. She came in the same year I did. And I said, Nancy, how big does the diamond at the bottom of that bag of snakes have to be for me to put my hand in there? And she said, 15%. If you can move the out-of-state needle, 15%, meaning 15% more likely to look at us online, 15% more likely to come visit us, and at least 15% more likely to actually come. So I said, okay, I can handle that. I'll try to do that. So here's the statistics, and by the way, blew me and Nancy Griffin away. Take a look at that bottom column, if you will. Consider it, if you just changed your name to University of Maine, Portland, how likely would you be to consider it when looking? 61%. That's a needle change that if you're in business and you saw you could move your customer needle, 61%, you would take a deep breath and say, whoa, I got to take that seriously. This is 4 times what Nancy said was the minimum that she would expect for a change. Same thing with visit our campus. And this last one shocked all of us. 51%, or 49%, almost 50%, said, I would actually be much more likely to come to your university if you just changed your name, because I would know you're a public university and I like Portland. Just that alone. And some people say, well, can't we just market Portland? But remember, think about the simplicity and the straightforwardness of changing the name by itself without any marketing means that they're saying, if I heard your name, I'd say, Portland, that's a great place. University of Maine, great place. So we were very moved by how significant that was. The other real change is guidance counselors. This is huge. Remember, we talked about how important guidance counselors are. 31% said, if you just changed your name, I'd be much more likely to recommend you. And then another 50% said, I'd be somewhat more likely to recommend you if you just change your name. That's an 81% movement of some sort over where they are now in the guidance counselors. And again, very important for the kind of students that we want here at USM. Let's talk a little bit about money. So how much is this going to cost? Because one thing that comes up really quickly is how much is this going to cost? So what we've been trying to do is we've been trying to get a percentage. I went to Nancy Griffin again. She did the calculation. Now, what she said is, only if you combine it with new dormitory spaces, goes back to Rob's question. If we got a 10% increase today, we turn them away, right? We're actually nervous because right now, and this seems like a luxury problem compared to a few years ago, we're up a little bit in student, for this fall, we're up in out of state. She's like, I'm scared to death because I don't know where to put these kids, right? Because you're already at 125% out in Gorham, so we clearly got to get that new residence hall on the ground and get that going. She said, but if we had the space and we go up 10%, remember, and it's not quite accurate because we do give scholarships to out-of-state kids. And so, but let's suppose they came in at 33,000, 34,000 apiece. 80 new students would be a 10% increase in out-of-state students. If that were the case, that's 2.5 to 3 million. I think that's unrealistic. I don't think that, not that the 80 is not realistic, I think that not all of them will be getting that they'll pay full price. Because remember, we have a number of programs, excuse me, for those of you outside higher education, but we have what's called the NEBI rate, the New England rate, and we moved a number of our programs down to the New England rate, which is kind of like in-state tuition for those programs. So if they come in, they're not going to pay full price, they're going to pay closer to the NEBI rate. So truthfully, you're not going to get 2.5, but ideally, 2.5 to 3. Let's just say it's 2 million. What do we estimate for costs? We estimate the total cost is going to be about $750,000 to $1 million of what we call hard cost. The basic things. You got to change the names, you got to change all the signage, you got to change all the uniforms, and you got to change the legal documents. Those are the basic hard costs that's going to cost you probably about $1 million. Then there's additional costs, what I call soft cost. And those soft costs will happen over several years. You've got to then go out and tell the world you changed your name. So you got to do additional marketing above and beyond the marketing we are. So how are we going to pay for that? Because we're at a $10 million reserve, we have the money and we can do a one-time expenditure. My problem with the alternative, which is what happens if you just spend, all that money? You're going to have to, what our marketing decisions told us is if you just keep the name the same but try to push Portland more, you're going to end up spending huge amounts on marketing that you don't have the money for. If I had the money for it, we don't have to do a name change. We could just sort of blast the New England market, et cetera. So we are in a difficult place. So if we do this even conservatively, in 2 years, we would pay for this name change. In 2 years. And I think that's conservative. Nancy says if we get lucky, we'll be able to pay for most of it in 1 year. But she believes that at least 2 years, we will solidly pay for the name change, as opposed to trying to do a marketing blast for the next 20 years, which we'll never necessarily get back. Just finishing up here, the reasons for the name change. We talked about this. Parents, students, counselors who reached out to faculty, alumni, students. So in the next slide, this was the initial reaction. I have to say I think things have changed. There are a couple really great endorsements that we've gotten. First of all, the Portland Press Herald has come out and said, yes, you definitely need to change your name. You need to be as attractive as possible. You're in a competitive market. Secondly, our Board of Visitors unanimously voted, thank you, for those of you who are involved with the Board of Visitors, unanimously voted in favor of the name change. And our Alumni Council, thanks to Corey and Jeff Jordan, I think I saw him. Yes, Jeff there, right there. They had had me back twice, and they voted 10 to 1. 10 votes yes, 1 vote against, voted for a name change. And that's really after looking at this data. So what you're going to see is the initial reaction. And by the way, I will say this. Somebody from St. Francis, some of you might remember St. Francis now became UNE. And so they said to me, Glenn, if you only get 2/3 of your alumni opposed, that's a good thing. He said, because when we tried to go from St. Francis to UNE, we had 90% opposition, and the nuns were on the opposition side, and that was not good. So this is kind of where we are. Interesting enough, if you go to that first column, faculty support this. Faculty actually support this. About 60% of them are either neutral or directly positive. Now, why? I went to the faculty senate, and I said, how come you guys are supporting this? Because normally, when an administrator recommends something, they're usually not here. Why do you support this? They said, and again, please don't take this the wrong way, but this is what faculty said. They said, it connotes a second or third tier school of Southern Maine. It kind of says we're a regional school in a geopolitically insignificant state, and we want to be more powerful. The other thing they said to me, which is fascinating, they said, we already changed the name. I said, what are you talking about? They said, when we go to conferences in Seattle, in Austin, in Chicago, nobody knows University of Southern Maine. So what do we say? We say, we teach at the University of Maine system in Portland, Maine. Everybody goes, oh, I see. And by the way, I heard that from several alumni. Like General Spencer, who runs the National Guard in New Hampshire, just next door, not like in Ohio. He runs the National Guard there. He said, Glenn, I've already changed the name. Whenever I'm at a cocktail party and somebody said, where do you go to school? I said, I go to the University of Maine system in Portland. They've already changed it, right? So what's happening is it just doesn't have any cachet out there in the real world. So faculty are supportive. Staff is split half and half. I've gone to a lot of staff meetings. Staff have said, and I think they've shifted a little bit. They said, our initial reaction is, oh God, we're going to lose our jobs. In order to pay that $1 million, we're going to have to lose our jobs. right? Because remember, our staff is pretty traumatized. I think we'd all agree they're pretty traumatized because in 2014, faculty got a lot of attention because we let 51 faculty go. 119 staff members also lost their jobs, and they're still traumatized by that, and their initial reaction was, whoa, I'm not sure this is a good idea because it could affect my job. Once I explained, we've got $10 million reserves, we would take that $1 million out of those reserves. That helped a lot. I think people felt a little less pressure. Initial reaction by students, my alumni, very strong. And by the way, I love the alumni opposition argument. I love it. There are two. One is, you guys are doing great. Everything's fine. Enrollment's up, our money's up, alumni coming back, you've gotten some big gifts, everything's going to be okay, right? And that's really kind of a nice statement about the university right now. They're kind of saying, everything's fine, why are you changing, right? Very typical for us, especially us Mainers. That's the way we like to say, everything's good. What they're not getting up every morning and looking at the statistics that you and I just saw earlier. That's the problem. And I'm kind of paid to look around the corner and go, yeah, everything's fine today. In 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, we're going to start, the plane will start to get bumpy, really bumpy. So understandably, the second argument of the alumni, which I really love, is USM name is kind of sacred. I said, you do know since my grandmother graduated in 1927, we've had 7 name changes, right? What I like to see it is a university that has evolved with itself. As the times have changed, we have changed, right? Normal school, mostly, almost all women, virtually all women, a very small fraction of men in industrial arts. Then you go to the teachers' college, then people say, well, we want to teach more than just teachers in education. We now became Gorham State College, then we eventually became POGO. And by the way, before we made that transition, we were, for at least 1 year, University of Maine at Portland, as David was saying, and University of Maine at Gorham. They finally put the two together, and eventually we became USM. So we've had a huge evolution. As times have changed, we've evolved, and times are changing, and we're just getting into a more competitive environment. So let's take a look quickly. So name change is necessary to ensure the future of the university. I think that's clear. What I would say is the reason we're doing this really is to survive. Now, it doesn't mean we're going out of business. I don't want to be overly exaggerated. And I also want to tell you this, and I think you know this. When students are looking at schools, the name and even the location isn't the #1 thing. I want to be really clear about it. So I don't want to exaggerate the importance of this. It's important, but on the hierarchy of things, quality and affordability, those are #1 and #2. So people will say to me, well, just focus on equality and put more money into quality. I say, I don't have the money. So I've got to start on the other side of the equation. I've got to bring more money in so I can ensure the quality and the affordability, more scholarships, et cetera. So I've got to start on the other side of the equation, because if I had a $1 billion endowment, and some schools like 26 miles north of us have those $1 billion endowments for 1,800 kids, you could just dump it into advertising if that was your problem. I don't have that. So that equation is got to change somehow, and you've got to get in there. The #1 and #2 things, quality, affordability. Next one is programming, and we've got great programs. We've got things that people really want. Then it comes to campus life, location, those kind of things.
Regarding the programming, there always was a problem. Most of the population base is here. The more educated people, without sounding elitist, are here. But yet an awful lot of the graduate programs, we had a ton of people I know that had to drive to Orono that lived in Greater Portland because you didn't have it, because Orono wouldn't give it up or whatever. And it was a hell of a problem. Are we working on that? Because that was a big problem at least 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing it's still a serious problem where the programs that should be here with a population basis are in Orono, and Orono doesn't want to give that up.
Well, interesting. I think that's a great question. In fact, the PhD, that was particularly true. So we started a PhD program in public policy and in education combined. That has helped us. We've had our 3rd cohort going through the PhD program, but I can tell you, Rob's right. A lot of people, when they wanted to get their PhD, in fact, when I wanted to get my PhD 10 or 12 years ago, I was planning to go up to Orono. I ended up going out of state, but I was planning to go up to Orono because that was my only choice. So we're trying to get more competitive. We now have 17 graduate programs total, and we're trying to expand those. I will say one of the ways that Orono is doing it, because people aren't so interested in driving up there anymore. As they say, it's 5 hours up to Orono and 2 hours back. So people are not, so what's happening is a little bit of, and this is helped by the Alphons, is that they've now taken over our MBA program here, which is okay. We let that happen because we think the Alphons are interested in helping us build a new graduate center. So what they're doing is just, Orono, I think, is a little bit interested in now working in joint degrees with us, like the MBA program, things like that. So definitely Rob's right. You've got to be really careful, but we are trying to do it. The other thing we're trying to do is just more online, and we're doing some stuff online around with a service provider, because we can't do it on our own. We don't have the money to get out there into the market, and that seems to be working as well. So we're trying, and honestly, I think your point is that it's not going to be that easy. We will be in competition. Yeah, Ness?
So the presentation is just awesome, great. The 500 surveys you sent out there, how many of them knew where Portland is? Because we have 2 Portland in the U.S.
Yeah.
And is Portland standing out more than Maine? And have you done any research in Portland, Oregon, to see if they have a university, or they may in the future utilize our name as well?
Yep.
So are we selling Portland, because we know that Portland is at least among the chefs and cooks and drivers, that name is out there.
Yes.
So I just want to know what is your call on the.
Yeah, Nestor is absolutely right. First of all, we get confused with Portland, Oregon all the time. And by the way, we did a bunch of names. So we did, University of Casco Bay, University of Portland, Portland College, Portland University, as well as University of Maine at Portland, et cetera. And none of them got a lot of support when we did the survey, in part because a lot of them were concerned about us being mixed up with Portland, Oregon, right? So one of the things that actually would help us is putting in a UMaine Portland, University of Maine Portland, so they hit the Maine and the Portland together when they log into the internet, so that we're clear we're in Maine. And having that distinction or that specification really will help us, we think. But you're definitely right. We end up getting confused with a number of people, including ones on the West Coast. I want to just add this. So what I've made to you is a business argument. I want to make a psychological argument. I believe, and again, this is a place that I take enormous pride in. I want to be here for a long time. I believe that we've been playing small. That we've been sort of content to be a 2-county college. Getting stuff done, doing okay, kind of apologetically. I want to just remind you, because I have to remind myself and then other people, in the building next door, there's $40 million worth of research being done by the Muskie School. Some of you are Muskie graduates, right? We have PhD professors in every single program here. We're in one of the best locations in America. We have an enormous amount of community engagement, and we're probably one of the best places in northern New England if you want to do internships and connect with the community. We should be playing bigger. We should never look down, look at ourselves downward compared to some of our competitors. We should never look at that way. It's time for us to really take the mantle of a great school. We are a great school. We psychologically have to move into that space, and sometimes we don't. And so I think part of this is the psychology of standing tall. Be Maine's biggest city. Be Maine's most beautiful place. Be one of the most beautiful places in New England and on the Atlantic Ocean, right? Be that place, and also be a place where PhD research is going on in every program, where you can be proud of the professors that we have, the people and the staff that support this place. I'm just saying psychologically, I think it's time for that change. Is this mostly a business decision? Yes, but I think there's an important psychological change as well. So let's take a look. I just want to go to this question because I know it always comes up. Because again, as I said, we went to our market decisions, helped us with all the market. I know some of you know them, and Broadreach Communications helped us with this. So to conclude, I'll say, so we asked them, should we just try to advertise a lot more in New England, or should we change our name? And of course, their initial reaction was, it's up to you, like every consultant. And I said, no, we're paying you some money. You tell us. So 24 hours later, they came back. They said, you know what? If we were running this business, I'd suggest you change your name. Because you're going to fight that name in marketing, and it's going to cost you a lot of money for the next 20, 30 years. If you change your name, you'll get a free ride. And then you're still going to have to do some marketing, but you don't have to do as much, and it's going to save you money. It will immediately tell people where you are and what you are. And that is what we're making. So we really pushed them, and this is what they had said to us.
Now, the map that you showed earlier, so investing money in New England is not going to be helpful because even Massachusetts was negative.
Right.
Most of New England was negative numbers.
Yeah, yeah, that's absolutely true. If you, yeah, well, I could go back to that, but I think that's, by the way, this is something, I'm going to get to Nasser's question about New England, because University of Maine, there's been a great debate about getting rid of the "at," and I'm all in favor of getting rid of the "at," because University of Maine at Portland kind of connotes like we're the satellite of someplace north of Bangor, right? So we're an Orono satellite. So if we become, and Bob has gotten a domain name of umaineportland.edu, then we're ourselves. So the way that we would market this, and by the way, some of this is politically, it has to go to the legislature, and everybody else is University of Maine at Farmington, University of Maine at Machias, University of Maine at Fort Kent. The only one that avoided that is Orono, who somehow redefined themselves as just the University of Maine, right? So everybody else, so we're probably in statute going to have to do at. But just like Farmington, you never hear people say University of Maine at Farmington. They call it UMF, they call it, and more likely they call it just UMaine Farmington. So we would try to do marketing and branding that probably wouldn't use the at, but this is kind of what you get, something along those lines. I want to go back to Nasser's comments. New England isn't growing rapidly, but it's growing faster than we are. So it's absolutely right. I think that alone will not do it in terms of market. I think if we change our name, there are 3 places where we've got to go. One is New England, and obviously that includes metropolitan New York, because this survey shows metropolitan New York. Secondly, we've got to move faster and stronger online, and I think we can do that. And third, we've got to move international. But we're starting with number 1, which we've got to just be stronger so that we have a wider attraction outside the state of Maine in New England and greater Portland. But he's absolutely right. You have to get down into the southern states and the southwestern states and out into the west before you get really heavy 18-year-old growth. Like I said, places like Texas, Florida, Georgia, they are growing in 18-year-olds. We are not. So that might be something like what it looks like. Bob will tell you. Bob mocked this up, so if you don't like it, blame Bob. But this is just an idea of what it might look like. Which is helpful. Finally, this is the last slide. So what happens next? So this is it's not a USM decision. It's not a Glenn Cummings decision. This is a Board of Trustees and a legislative decision. The Board of Trustees has to vote in favor of this. This is not mine. We will make a recommendation at some point. I'll also include the concerns. I'll try to be very honest and transparent because I've been out here talking to people. So, what are the concerns? There are a number of ones that I think are certainly worth repeating. Some of them I'm not sure I totally get or understand. Some of them I do understand. But on the other hand, we'll show them this data, and they will ultimately, the Board of Trustees this summer probably will make a decision one way or the other. But that doesn't stop there. Then you have to go to the legislature. Ultimately, the legislature has to approve the final language because it's placed in statute that now and forever all 7 campuses will be so named and so located. It's a long story behind that. I don't want to bore you with that, but Mary knows about it. Anyway, so this is probably a 2-year process. So I just want to let you know that. That ends what I have to say, and now I'm open to any more questions that might happen. Yeah, Mary, and do you want to hit that light right there, Ann? No, the other one. No, the next one with the lights on. Yep.
See, that's what I did last week.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. I think I probably don't need it. I think you can all hear me, right?
We're live streaming, so.
Oh,
yeah.
we're live streaming. Oh,
So people can
it's
hear
like
your
the
voice.
red light is on, right? Glenn, my question relates to kind of the mechanics of when and if the name change goes through and you market it and you bring students here, A, will a dormitory be available in Portland by then? And B, what do you say to the majority of students who end up living in Gorham thinking that they were coming to Portland?
Yep, good question. So 2 things. First of all, we're trying to align it, which is why we're taking much more time with the name change, right? So we're going through a long process here. Legislature wouldn't approve it for a year out. We would not actually pull the trigger on it for a while. So we're trying to correlate it And again, trying to manage these two big gigantic ideas is not easy. But when ideally, we actually finish the dormitory about the time we make the official name change. So that would be great. The second question is, so how do you do this, right? First of all, I just want to say, many colleges in America have exactly this issue. First of all, Gorham will always be at least our freshmen and sophomore. They can go all the way, they can stay there. But we're going to try to have freshmen and sophomores stay in the Gorham campus so we don't cannibalize that campus, right? Because if they had, most of them would say, a lot of students would say, I just want to stay right in Portland right from the beginning. So we have freshmen not eligible, probably not sophomores eligible. These would be for juniors, seniors, graduate students, and law students who need affordable housing. We hear this all the time. Our students can't afford the housing in Portland, South Portland, Scarborough, Falmouth, even Westbrook now has gotten really expensive. So these would be below market, very simple housing here on the Portland campus. So we definitely have that issue of, you've got to time it right, you've got to make sure that it's affordable, and you can't cannibalize the Gorham campus. And by the way, I'm glad you brought that up. The Gorham campus is, first of all, irreplaceable, right? So some people say, well, why don't you just sell that campus and move everything in? Okay, seriously. First of all, you wouldn't want to do that. There are two reasons. One is you could not afford to replace it. I mean, just take the athletic fields. Just take Costello and the three soccer field, the softball, baseball. In Portland, to replace that would be $300 million. I'm not exaggerating. To replace that, rebuild it and find the land. Where would you find the land in Portland to do that? It would just not be possible. So the second thing is, Gorham is crucial to our rural students. Believe it or not, some of you are very familiar and very comfortable in Portland, but for those of us who grew up in like a small village like Five Islands, Maine, Portland was freaky. And it's freaky for the kid who's sitting there today in Solon, Maine or Bingham, Maine, right? You go into Gorham, it kind of feels like, Skowhegan, feels a little like, it feels a little like Fairfield. It feels okay. And for our rural students, they like it. That lasts about a year and a half, by the way. And then they're like, Portland, no problem. We'll get into Portland. So you can't replace Gorham. It has a crucial place. And I will also say, schools in America do this all the time. So if you get into Boston College today, like Bob's son did, you don't go to downtown Boston. You go to the Newton campus. You're not allowed to live in downtown Boston. You go to the Newton campus. This is true at the University of Michigan. It's true at Georgia Tech. These places where you live outside the core as a freshman and sometimes as a sophomore, you come in and take your classes or you take all your classes out there. So not abnormal. I do agree, you got to be careful of bait and switch. But right now we got a bait and switch problem already because the people who come here from out of state are like, oh, I love Portland. I figured out that USM is Portland, and then we got to go out to Gorham. So you have to do, and we're committed to do this, is to take advantage of having lots of freshmen and sophomore on that campus by creating a freshman experience where people are, and we know they stay with you more if they feel like they made good social connections. They feel like they have a kind of a cohort that stays with you throughout the whole 4 years. So we think we can take advantage of it. We can market it well. If you're a parent, you like that. I want to have a place where my kids are connected with other people. So I think we can do that. We wouldn't be abnormal and in terms of the rest of higher education. You just have to be really transparent about it. So, yeah, Tim?
Hold on, Tim.
I teach mostly freshmen in the Russell Scholars Program in Gorham. And so I see the 18 and 19-year-old kids that come here. And they are in need of somebody to tell them how to find the bathrooms and such. They're particularly the in-state students. But we're also getting a tremendous number of people who want their children to be safe, even though we tell them quite up front, they're adults now, don't call me. I can't tell you anything that they don't want me to tell you. And that's okay. But what we notice is that over time, they gravitate into Portland simply because it's easy to do. And the better the bus system is, which is much better than it used to be, our relationship with the Portland Metro has made an enormous difference in the numbers of kids who go from the Gorham dorm to a cultural event in Portland or a party or whatever it would be. I want to get rid of the at too. I don't like it. Yeah. The other problem that I see with this is, as I spent a lot of time in a previous life, in a career, where I had to be in Augusta in the legislature. And the joke among those of us who lobbied was, how do you kill a bill in the legislature? Tell them it's a Portland bill. Why? Rural Maine sees us as some sort of Sodom and Gomorrah in many ways. But then when they send their kids here, they discover that it's a pretty safe place. This is not the jungle that they thought it was going to be. Yeah. And our foreign students, in particular, love it here. They just do. This has got there's a widening of culture that's gone on in Portland for, certainly, I think there were 6 students of color when I was a freshman, between both campuses. That isn't true at all any longer.
Yeah, thank God.
And so you have people who are interested in our diversity, but they're also interested in our safety, our sense of community. So I came into this argument thinking, that's the damn dumbest idea I ever heard in my life. I fully support it now because I want those out-of-state students to come here, and I want to do what they do that you mentioned earlier. By God, they stay here. Yeah. They move from Ohio or Illinois or wherever it is, and they move here because they like it. It's safe. You can get a good job. You can find affordable housing, and you can move your career here. And the more of that we have, the safer this great university is going to be, period. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Yeah, Nolan?
All right, I'm going to ask you to speak right into that microphone.
Jane, you're next. Sorry.
I just wanted to share with you a little sadness at losing USM, only because I've used this many times in my career as a high school teacher, at the middle school, and also here at USM. I love the letters, USM. You stay with mom. You save money. You stay in Maine. There's so many ways to use it that are just kind of cool.
I've never actually heard any of them. That's interesting. That's great.
But in trying to convince kids, I teach in Westbrook. When I was at the high school, I would say, you know, guys, you stay with mom really works. You save money. You can get through in 3 years if you really want to, if you do all the summer stuff too. And there's a whole family of kids that went to Westbrook, through Westbrook schools, and went through our university system too. The sisters came here and the brother went to Orono and did it in 3 years because they did all the summer stuff too. It's just, I'm not upset about Portland. I live in Portland. I was born and bred here. You know, I live 2 miles away. It's a lovely commute when I get to come here at nighttime and play with the college kids too. And I was telling them that this is a great place to be. And I asked my kids that I have in my math classes at night, and several of them were still living at home. I said that's saving money, and it's in our world, that's an important thing that we can maybe do that without a lot of debt. Yeah. Colleges are very expensive.
If I can do a commercial for that, by the way, we have lowered our debt from $29,000, this is after 4 years, $29,000 to $25,000. Now, in Maine, I can tell you, you can't buy a good new pickup truck for $25,000. So think about that. I mean, affordable, quality, absolute quality here. So I think this helps us start making that argument. You've got a great gem right here. It's time that we take the basket off the gem and show it. Jane, you had a question?
Here, I'm going to have you just speak right into that. I think I'm won over. I mean, I came here to get the facts, and it convinces me. But I have a question. I work in the community college, and I probably always will. And I'm used to having students come into my office, and they see my diploma, and they see the Husky, and I'm thinking that's encouraging to them to go to USM. So what happens when they see my diploma that says USM, University of South Maine on it, but it's now a different name?
Yeah, so thank you. James, that's a great question. So first of all, we don't change the mascot. We're just keep that same. We say all the logo, the same colors stay the same. By the way, that was much on the mind of the athletic department. They're like, please don't change the Huskies. We love the Huskies. It's a good symbol for us. And secondly, what we would do, which is what almost every school that's had a name change does, is you send out to your alumni, would you like a new signed diploma with the new school? Right? It's a new diploma. We just would send that to you. So, and Corey said that she'd put it in a gold and plated, no, she didn't say that. But exactly. Okay, good. So you could do that if that mattered to you. But obviously, if you wanted to, I mean, we have alumni who still say on their resume. In fact, I was at the one out in Gorham the other day. She said, I was proud of the Gorham State Teachers College, and on my resume, I still use Gorham State Teachers College because I never transitioned. So you can do whatever you want, but people can just change once the name is changed. If you like it, if you want, you can change your resume, or you can get the diploma. So we'll make sure that we put that out as an option, and we'll just sign it and get that out to everybody. So. Yeah, absolutely.
I just want to say that I've supported the name change, and I'm really cheered to learn that another institution had great success changing the name, or adding to their institution's name the words New Jersey. We have Portland to work with.
It is counterintuitive.
Yeah, so I mean, the sky's the limit. But seriously, I'm wondering, I've been following this issue, and I've seen a lot of the chatter in the Press Herald and things, and I know there's a lot of concern in Gorham about the Gorham name, and I was wondering if there was any thought about kind of enshrining the Gorham name as, like, because LA College seems to have its own identity as Lewis and Auburn College, and I was wondering if there was any thought about doing something like that for Gorham.
Yeah, I think so. I think that we really have to see this as an opportunity to embrace Gorham on a maybe slightly different but a stronger level. For example, what we're thinking about, we've always had a dean of the Lewiston Auburn College. I think we've never had a dean of the Gorham campus, dean of the Gorham sort of college experience, which we could do, and we could create a kind of a college, what I call an undergraduate college or an underclassman college, where you focus on the core curriculum in Gorham. So we actually could highlight or strengthen our Gorham presence by having a dean there full-time, that's somebody that cares about, negotiates, and lobbies for Gorham all the time, and creates a really embracing, what I see as an embracing core curriculum, or freshman curriculum, sophomore curriculum, so that they don't actually have to, if you're a freshman, ideally, you can have the option never to leave the Gorham campus. Right now, you can sort of do that if you're willing to take a few classes online. But we could maybe, what I would love to see is if we could create an entirely wraparound program for students at Gorham their freshman year, never have to leave. I'm sure they would want to, some on a Friday or Saturday night, but you never have to leave the Gorham campus for your classes. So I think that's where we have to go, so we can really honor that Gorham program and make sure that people know in Gorham that we care. But I will say I went to the Gorham Town Council about 6 weeks ago, and I was expecting Heart of Darkness, a lot of apples and tomatoes thrown my way. I went to the Gorham Town Council and made this basically the same presentation, and 5 of the 7 that were there, I think there are 9 counselors all over, but there were 7 that were there that night. 5 of them spoke. 4 of them said, "We're business people, we get it." Totally shocked me. The 5th one was not nasty. He just said, "I'm not sure about the name change, but I really appreciate you being here." So that was a really, I mean, it blew me away. I mean, I literally, Bob and I were laughing when I went out the door. I said, you know, if I don't come back and I end up, you know, somewhere in a creek in North Gorham, you'll know what happened. And to come back and have 4 out of the 5 that spoke say, kind of get where you're going. This makes sense. I understand. If I were a business person, I'd make this change too. So it does. We've had different. However, I will also say that on Tuesday night I went to the Gorham Alumni, and let's just say you guys are a much more gentle audience. I want to go back to Tim because Tim said something. My last comment as I was leaving, when I was just meeting with a bunch of, only about maybe a slightly smaller crowd than this, but I was talking to this one woman, 70 years old, had been a guidance counselor her whole life, went to the Gorham State Teachers College and whatever, and she says, "I just want to tell you, dear, you're doing such a great job. I'm so proud of what you're doing. Thank you so much for making my thing. I like everything you're doing except this dumbass idea." Her exact quote. I'm like, that is a great way to end the night. That is yeah. Oh, sorry. Sam and then Adina.
Hi. Yeah, so just a quick question. I'll say I'm pretty supportive, so I don't mean to make the perfect enemy the good, so to speak. One thing that I feel really affectionate about currently USM as a place that kind of takes all comers. Like I wandered down, using that word deliberately, from Central Maine, and I know there are other people who came here unexpectedly from different pathways from all over, and that identity of the school remains pretty important to me. So with the focus on bringing in more kind of traditional undergraduate students who are going to pay more of the full freight rate, how will the school still try to serve people coming from different backgrounds, whatever those backgrounds may be?
Yeah, I love that question, and thank you for asking that. So our whole marketing right now is about the University of everyone. By the way, that doesn't mean for everyone. It is, but because we're not a school that says No. We're a school that says not yet, and I love that, right? The not yet is, you know, you need to work on your math skills. I would recommend adult education or the community college first, so we're not stealing their money. Secondly, you might say, you know, your English is good, but it's not academic English. Let's work with you in adult education, or why don't you come to our programs and try to get that up so you feel comfortable here. So that's the kind of school that I love to be. I don't want anybody saying you're not college material, because I can tell you a lot of people who were told that went on to prove everybody wrong. And that's the kind of place that I love. So I just keep in mind that 1,500 students live in our dormitories. There are more that are traditional, but live in apartments. But of that 8,500 students that we have, the vast majority are exactly what Sam's talking about, right? They're 28 years old coming back from Afghanistan, right? They're 32 years old and they're no longer married and they've got 2 kids and they're trying to get through the nursing program. That's that's us, and we don't want to change that. You know, the idea is to try to circulate more money through that out of state to help them get through, give them the last mile money they need to finish up that degree, even though their car broke down and their husband left them or whatever it is. We want to use that money to help them get into a more successful position. So to me, I don't want to be here if we're going to play the game of I want to be known by who I reject, right? That's not the game I'm in, right? And I always tell the story that my first year of being a president up at UMaine Augusta, there's a school up the river in a place called Waterville. I won't tell you the name of that school, but it's not that one that Pam has. They fired their admissions director. And I thought, wow, they've never had difficulty trying to get students. I wonder what that's about. And sure enough, the president came out in this article and said, I want to reject more students. That's the game they're in. I get up every morning and I think, I'm not in that stupid game. You know, I've got a much bigger mission than that, right? They want to reject more students so that they compete with places in Brunswick and Waterville and Williamstown, Massachusetts. Okay, it's the game they're in, I understand. We're bigger than that. Nobody comes into my office and says, boy, I'm worried I'm getting paid too much. I think you were thinking about saying that, Michelle, I think. But I can tell you we get the best mission in the world. So I'm with you. I don't want to change those principles at all. If anything, that money's going to be used for more scholarships for Maine kids, and that's the key thing. Adine, sorry.
So I've been speaking to students and staff and faculty for a while, just curious what other people thought. And I had a bunch of notes, and you kind of touched upon almost everything that I had written down. I definitely think aiming the bringing Portland dormitories is a hugely good idea. I understand the part about needing to bring in more funds to help create the kind of quality of education. So I like that you said that. And the name change is about bringing in new students, but what about retaining them? So like the hypothetical person that you just mentioned, say a woman who is left by her husband trying to raise kids and go to nursing school. We used to have an early childhood education daycare center on the Gorham and Portland campuses. Yep. I have personal lifelong friends who were single parents who were actually able to get degrees here because that was a crucial point. So I would definitely like to say that I heard you say that you have other things in mind, obviously, besides just the name change. So I think that would be a really great one, because also the people in the early child care education program have hands-on, on-campus. You know, we talk about synergy. I think this is that would be an amazing synergistic type of thing to bring back, very useful for employees of the university and students. And then a couple other things that that I heard from other students and staff and faculty was increasing mental health services on the Lewiston campus as being a big priority. And I think you answered pretty much everything else I had to say. So.
Is it Adine or Adina? Adina, thank you. Sorry, thank you, Adina. So let's go to the child care thing first, or the idea of child care. So I want to say retention has haunted this university for a long time. First of all, we were letting in students that probably shouldn't have been in. They helped pay the bills, but they would only make it a semester or two. And by the way, that is not what we should be in business to do, because their students walk away from here with more debt and they're worse off than if they never came to college. That is not a good business model. It's not a moral business model. So we've been trying to actually work with students who aren't quite ready to succeed here and making sure that they're ready. Not super selective, as I said, it's a not yet, just to make sure that we're not stealing money from them, and that's really crucial. So what helped us in retention? This is almost, this is like, you know, if you're outside higher ed, it doesn't necessarily mean much to you, but this is probably one of the largest increases over 2 years in retention of any college in America. We've had a 7.4% increase in retention in 2 years, 7.4. That doesn't mean a lot to some, but there are places in America that if they could get a 1 or 2% increase in retention, they would put a huge press release out. So this is huge. How did we do that? We did it in 2 ways. One is we gave more money for scholarships, right? In fact, we had trouble balancing our budget for 2020. We're now balanced. Why? We're looking at like, what? We're not spending that much more money. What's going on? The answer was more students were coming back saying, thank you for my scholarship last year. I'll take it again. Right? And they deserve it. We said 4 years. As long as you stay with us all 4 years and go full time, we'll give you that scholarship. So that helped huge amounts, because the stress of, especially if you're coming from a working class family and you get a $1,200 bill that you weren't expecting, and you think you're an imposter, like I thought I was an imposter when I first got to college, you say, I'm out of here, right? I'm out of here when you get that $1,200 bill. And so the first thing is try to reduce their financial burden. They'll stay. Secondly, better advising. This is, I never thought it was possible, but this Nancy Griffin I told you about, she came to me and said, Glenn, you know what we need to do? We need to have individual, one-on-one interviews with every single incoming student, not just traditional student, every single student. So the ones that Sam were talking about, one-on-one, hour-and-a-half interviews before they get here September 1st. I said, that's 1,700 students, Nancy. How could we do that? She said, we're going to do it, and they did it. This is the 2nd year in a row. Why are we up in retention? Because those conversations were crucial. Those conversations went something like this. First thing we said is, higher education's hard. You should go full time. I know it's counterintuitive. You know, say, well, I don't have enough money. If you wake up every morning and you say the first thing, as I was saying to Richard, yes, I was saying to Richard, if you go full time, you wake up every morning, you say, I'm a student first. You act like a student first, and you get it done, and then you get that degree, and then you're worth more on the market. So the first thing we say to them is, don't try to work 25, 35, 40 hours. Not going to work if you go full time. The second thing we say to them, everybody has problems, right? Everybody has a roommate that drives them crazy, a professor that feels like they're picking on them, a $1,200 to $100 bill you weren't expecting. Here's what to do. Call your advisor. Call me. I'll help you solve these problems. Don't run away. Because again, if you don't think you belong here, you're looking for the reasons why you don't belong here. So a bad roommate or a $1,200 bill is enough to get you out of there. So if we start with that, it seems advising and money help. But Dina is talking about something else, which is we have a lot of people who have other responsibilities outside the university. And it's true, we used to have a child care facility that really was right here in Sullivan Gym. People could stop, they could drop off their children, et cetera. Now, in the tough times, even before 2014, it got cut. I would love to talk about being able to get that going again. You know, maybe if we had a private person that would be able to lease it for a decent price, we could make that happen. So I'm definitely willing. I haven't thought through this, but intuitively, this has come up a couple times. It really makes a difference. So there was one other thing that you had mentioned too. That was the second part of students and mental health. So one thing I'm really proud of, many of you know, related to mental health, is that we have a large number of students that are in recovery from drug and alcohol addiction. So we've started a recovery center in Sullivan Gym up the 2nd floor with the students. So that means that students can actually go there, they can get counseling, they can hang out with other students who are recovering, that are getting clean and sober or are clean and sober and want to maintain that way of life. And my dream would be to someday have a dormitory that was what we call a wellness dormitory, where you choose to be completely abstinent for drugs and alcohol while you're here at the university. It's self-chosen, not mom and dad chosen, but a self-chosen program that for kids who are either in recovery or simply don't want to indulge in any of that. So I think we try to build those kind of things and expand those things. So we have now got all of our counselors that have drug and alcohol certifications of some sort. So they've done training in that area, and that helps. And of course, just more mental health issues. We do have a lot of mental health issues. College is stressful, a lot of anxiety, a lot of depression.
The person that I spoke with was referring specifically on the Lewiston.
Lewiston campus, yeah.
Something like there was like 1 2-hour period or something, 1 day a week where
Interesting.
something would go to speak.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. No, we don't have the recovery center on Gorham or Lewiston. We just have it here on the Portland campus. Most of our counselors are either in Gorham or here. We're pretty thin, I think, up at Lewiston and Auburn. So that's a good comment. I didn't know that it was only 2 hours a day.
I could be exaggerated. The person just told me it was very, very limited.
Yep.
I think they did say it was 1 day a week. It
Oh.
was part of the day. I don't know exactly how many hours.
Bob, can you just remind me to follow up on that, and I'll try to get to that. So thank you.
I don't have a question, but it's a comment. I like the name, but I don't like the ad. And I like how you say Maine and Portland. I feel like not for other students to come from out of state, but when I moved here 15 years ago, I used to give a speech about the war in Sudan. I'm from Sudan. So like places like Florida, Washington, D.C., even New York, they'll be like, where is Portland, Maine? Is it in Canada? Like, so I'm like, now people will know exists we're in America or not in Canada.
That's nice. Thank you for saying that.
It's time. I'm beginning to run out, and somebody's going to be upset with me for not cooking tonight. However, I want to say thank you, Glenn, for being the best thing that's happened to this university in a very, very long time, and I know that.
Yeah.
Okay?
Well, thank you. That means a lot, especially coming from your original dumb idea to, yes, I support that. Thank you. That means a lot to me. I really appreciate it. Thanks so much, Tim. By the way, Tim has been actually really helpful in helping me understand the history. He has been here. He looks young, but he's actually been here a while. So exactly.
I just wanted to say I'm very enthusiastic about the name change, but I'm really enthusiastic to hear everybody here. I wasn't sure what to expect, but it seems like you have a great, in this particular room, a lot of support from the alumni, which is terrific. I wish it could happen tomorrow. 2 years seems like a long time to wait, and my only concern is the investment in time and resources for this, when so much other work still has to be done. The beautification of this campus needs help.
Yeah.
The international, student outreach, the online program. And so I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about that, and how much, is that a concern for you that we're going to be putting so much into this, or what are the plans for the other needs here?
Yeah, thank you. So yes, I mean, could I use that $1 million hard costs in 1,000 other ways? Absolutely. I mean, people will say to me, why don't you, clean out all the bathrooms in the dorm? I mean, not clean, but renovate all the bathrooms in all the dormitories in Gorham. But that would increase enrollment by 25%. So there's definitely a strategy, or at least a opportunity cost there, whichever way you go. I completely agree. When I think about the things that we need, scholarships come up number one, really, that we have to make this place affordable. We have to be competitive. We have to be supporting our students. Advising comes up as again. And then there are actually certain programs that are growing. Cybersecurity, computer science, digital sciences, those are big right now, and we should be investing in there. So my hope is let's do 1 or 2 things that will actually generate a little bit more income, and then put those into all of those good places. That's the hope, but I completely agree with you. This can't stop at a name change. This is not a silver bullet. It's just part of a long progression to make us a first-class image, to reflect the first-class people we are, right? And that's part of the change. So anyway, I agree 100%. There's a lot of stuff that we could spend that money on. Hopefully we'll have a little bit more to do that. Thank you.
Does this work? Okay.
Yeah.
The Gorham, the dormitory on Portland campus is awesome. I just want to make sure that the student gets involved for making design, since they're going to use that a lot. Yeah. I know USM had used a property on Congress Street, and also the marginal way was built for more or less for students. And I would like to see the university see if we can privatize or lease or loan or work with that aspect as well. And as far as the name goes, my daughter goes here, is going to graduate this May. My other daughters are coming in here. So I'll be telling them I graduate from USM, and they're going to be telling me we graduate from UMP University. So the acronym was a little bit tough with UMP.
Well, we're going to try to avoid the acronym. We're going to try to, because technically UMaine Farmington could be called UMP or whatever. And so what we're trying to do is Bob's already talked about trying to, just when we talk about it, if we all talk about it as UMaine Portland, I think everybody else will eventually follow along. So I want to go back to what Nestor said about the creation of the residential hall. So by the way, if you can kind of think across the street, we would actually demolish Woodbury Center and get rid of that. We have $26 million that we have now because of you, many of you, who supported the bond package back on November 6th. We actually have money to build the student center. And above that, we would go up to 7 stories as high as this building. The city's already said, go as high as your tallest building, which is Glickman. And we can go up to 600 beds across the hall, and again, across the road. And then that parking lot would actually go away. So we create a quad, right? So you turn that back to green grass, so you're not kind of screaming commuter college. There will be plenty of commuters, and the good news is for our commuter students, they will have a better place to go. We'll have a much bigger student center. It will feel more cafe-like. It will be a place where you can sit in couches, you can sit in chairs and tables, you can have access to our computers, you can bring your own computer. Hopefully it'll feel like a big coffee by design, basically, on that first floor, so that students really feel comfortable across the street. But we're not actually doing the building of the residence hall by the bond package. We don't have enough money for that. That will be done by a private-public partnership. So what we're going to be doing is an RFQ. Developers will come in and they'll say, we'll build this thing for you. But for the next 19 years, 29 years, 39 years, we will have a mortgage payment, basically. It's not ideal, but we don't have the money to we don't have $40 million to borrow ourselves. So we're going to create a public-private partnership with these P3 companies. And so what we have found is that the off-campus stuff that we've tried, Congress Street, and we tried to negotiate down at Bayside, it has not worked. Families and a lot of our students want to be on the campus and have access when they wake up to dormitories, food, et cetera, and of course their classes ideally. So the top few floors, by the way, would be kind of what you might call tiny studio apartments, right? So they would have a very small kitchenette. They would have probably a loft where you'd actually sleep, and a small sort of what you might call a living room / study area, but really small. If you know those apartments down on Oak Street for artists, it's just a kind of a sliver of this room, and basically with a loft over the sort of the kitchen bathroom area. So it's great for graduate students, great for law students. A law student and their husband could stay in that fully. They could, you can throw a baseball to Hannaford, you can hit a golf ball to Trader Joe's, and Bob could throw a football to Whole Foods. So you can get there if you wanted to. You've got your own food options, or you can just go downstairs into the new. There'll be 24, or there'll be 3 meals a day in the student center below. So you'd have a lot of options, but the residence hall will be done by private-public partnership. And the idea is to create a place where you've got graduate centers on the top floor, next floors down, upperclassmen would be more like quads, similar to what they do down at Bayside, where you have a shared kitchen area if you want, and then 4 doors where you have a private bedroom, but then you work together, you have come together for your kitchen space. Adina?
Just another point is, I know like in the name change, there's going to be a lot of mugs and pencils and yada yada to recall or whatever.
They're vintage. They'll be vintage.
That's a good way to look at it, because I would just hope that the idea of trying to make it as sustainable and as little amount of throwing a bunch of stuff
Right.
in the garbage can, any ways to like reuse, you know what I mean?
Yes, I do know exactly what you mean. In fact, I've already had a student who said, I've got it. What we need to do is have a place where everybody can donate their old stuff, and we will all take it down to Goodwill or the Salvation Army and give that up for the sweatshirts, the T-shirts, the stuff that people don't want, and we'll make sure that it lands in. So I said, I'm going to take it, and I know that the student's name. So she was already thinking about how we do this. By the way, that part is actually easier than you think. That transition, and I agree, there's a recycling element that we have to be careful of, but that transition is fairly easy. So we just simply say, here's the new logo, and then the bookstore, almost within a week, will start sending us T-shirts, pencils, pens that have the new stuff. So it can be done fairly quickly. The market system moves pretty quickly on that level. But there is the issue, as you point out, what do you do with the waste? And yeah,
so I guess donating it to schools that don't have
yep.
notebooks.
Yep. And pens. Yep. Yep. Oh, Richard, yeah.
Yeah, I have no problems with the name change. You know, I mean, I think it's a great move. My question would be about the dormitory here in Portland. Mm-hmm. How much pushback has there been, or do you anticipate, from the neighborhood?
Interesting. You know, last night I was not able to come, but there was a neighborhood meeting, and interesting. The neighborhood, Falmouth Street would be the only one that would get kind of a little bit of a block, but the block actually wouldn't be an ocean view block. It would actually be the block of the Portland skyline, which is not as keen, or they're not as keen on that as they would be of missing, say, the Back Cove or something like that. So they were not, you know, what actually, interesting enough, last night, their biggest concern was how run down some of our properties are. Like, so the concern in the neighborhood is, if you guys got a little prettier, we'd all gain, right? So they said, you know, these white houses up on Bedford Street, rip them out and put in, you know, some condos or something, and have, you know, I don't know, faculty members, or, you know, make that more attractive for your students or graduate students. They were concerned about they don't like Woodbury because they think it looks kind of commuterish, and they don't like the parking lot in the middle of the campus either. So they were actually trying to say, pretty things up a little bit around here, make them look nicer, and then we all gain. So, and they also, by the way, said, please put something besides this 1984 Miami Vice look around this Glickman Library. It's starting to look really bad, right? So they're telling us, lift your game, get going. So overall, where there's a little bit of friction is actually not related to USM, and this is probably just something good for everybody to know. In front of the law school is going to be a roundabout that the city's putting in. Now that's really good news for us, because that Brighton Avenue extension, so all those cars that are coming in from the west right now, we found out that 65% of the cars that in the last hour and a half since you've been here, 60% of those are not USM cars. Right? They're just trying to get a quick way to get out to Buxton, or to get to Gorham, or to get to Westbrook or Sockabee Valley. So what we found is that what we believe is if you block off that slanted place where you kind of slide easily into the intersection today, with the roundabout, traffic will probably go down Falmouth Street, or they'll go down Deering Avenue. It doesn't make any sense for them to wait for the oncoming traffic and take a left to come down through here, and it doesn't make any sense for them to go up there, wait for the traffic at the top of Bedford Street, and then take a right. So we're thinking that that will have a huge impact, but some of the neighbors don't like the roundabout idea. It's counterintuitive, by the way, I won't get into this, but it's actually safer. Roundabouts are actually safer, because what happens in the lights, you see the green light, most of us are guilty of this, you just focus on the green light, you try to get a little bit of extra speed and get through that green light. Whereas with roundabouts, your brain slows down, stays more alert, you slow the car down, you look in all directions. So strangely enough, at least the traffic data that the city showed us, you're actually safer with a roundabout. But the locals don't like that, because it drives traffic down Falmouth Street, which is where they live. I will say a lot of the houses on Falmouth Street are actually apartments. There are only 2 that are purely single home, and many of them are filled with our students. So that helps. But just as a point of interest, one of those single families is a guy who is the head of the Woodford's Neighborhood Association. So he doesn't love the roundabout, and he's ginned up about the roundabout. But as I've said, look, you know, don't shoot the messenger. We support what the city's doing, but that's a city decision.
My concern then, if with the roundabout, is what's going to happen to the walking? I mean, when I was attending, I would walk through that intersection all the time, and the lights worked. you could hit the button and you could stop and you could cross.
Right.
How is that going to work with a roundabout? And
Yeah, you're over
getting
my head.
students around?
You're over my head traffic-wise. Apparently, according to them, there's enough space that you can get through. But I don't know. But
Will the university have a chance to address that, because it's going to be your students? It's going to be
yeah,
So
Yeah.
I think the city will definitely be paying attention to that
Yeah.
because of all.
yeah, there are a lot of middle school kids that are heading down there. But yeah. Well, what we'd like to do long-term, which I don't say a lot to the neighbors, is to do a traffic study in about 3 or 4 years after that Brighton Avenue extension is eliminated, and see if how much percentage-wise. My guess is it's going to drop incredibly, right? The number of non-USM cars will drop incredibly. That would allow us to basically close down Bedford to some extent. Now, Bedford's a really scary place for our students. We actually had, in the fall, we had a student who was hit by a car out here crossing at night, and there were a lot of night classes. So for us, I think long-term, I wouldn't do it until the traffic study showed that there had been a great reduction, because otherwise I think a lot of people would be very upset. But I think if we were to look at the data first, find out that only 10% of our traffic is non-USM, then we could go ahead. So the long-term plan, the master plan does not call for the elimination of Bedford for non-USM traffic, but I think long-term we'll take a look at the data and see where that leads us. Because it would be safer for our students if it were just university cars that were coming in here, students and staff.
I have no idea what you're doing with this intersection.
Yeah.
But when you talk about right now in extension, you talk about that one little stretch
Yep.
from the roundabout to Bedford.
Yes, exactly. That little angled street. So they're closing that. But if you want to, you can still get to Bedford Street. You have to go straight on Deering and then take a left.
And so you can't go to that parking lot anymore. Is that going to be gone?
Right, that little part. Yeah, okay. We're trying to figure out how we do all that, but it will stay during all the construction phase, but it will eventually go because that will stop.
Well, you probably have time for one more question.
Oh,
if anyone
yep,
has.
sure. Hearing none, you may want to go eat. Sorry, thank you so much for listening to me. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Very nice presentation. I hope to get together with you sometime.
That would be great.
Yeah. I know you've got Alice working for you right now.
I do, yeah, thank you.
I'll give you my card, but I have an RFQ situation you might be interested
Okay.
in for Macworth Island.
Oh, yeah, that would be interesting. That would be really good. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Whoops.
But I still, I'm going to do an RFQ for 2 of my buildings that, so once I'm just slowing down, because I just went to legislature. I got a vote for